Everyone, Luke here with Life Labs. We've got a returning guest, actually. Been a long time, I think 6-7 years,
Huh?
under a different name. So if you go on the channel, the previous interview was with Daniel Solomon,
Yeah.
but he would like to formally reintroduce himself.
Yeah, I'm confident now to use my real name, Dante
Yeah.
Berry. Yeah.
Yeah. How's it going, Dante?
Doing well, doing good, doing good.
Dante's a pretty cool name, actually.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't know. I was just I guess nervous or scared to use my name back then.
I've never met a Dante.
Really? Wow.
Does it have any special meaning or anything? I don't know
Well,
what the
most
root
people know
is.
Dante from is the French guy that made Dante's Inferno or
Yeah, Dante's Inferno. I don't. Isn't
he
that book about going to hell? Like all the
yeah, it's like
circles
the
of hell.
nine realms, yeah, like the nine realms of hell or something like that. Um so that's interesting, but my dad actually named me after a football player named Dante.
Which
I don't
one?
I don't know. It was way back in the 80s.
I know.
So I have no idea.
Only Dante I can think of is Dante Whitner, but he spelled it different too. He was a safety for the 49ers.
Okay.
But okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And is Barry's your real last name or
Mm-hmm. Yep, Dante Berry.
Dante Barry?
Sure.
Okay. So Dante, you were born with sickle cell,
Well,
correct?
my son was.
Your son
Now,
was. You were not.
what so for sickle cell, a person has to inherit the gene from both parents. So I have a trait. I have one gene. It's beta thalassemia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, his mother has sickle cell anemia trait. Okay, now a
Mm-hmm.
child, they say each child has 1 in 4 chances of developing the full blown disease of sickle cell anemia if he inherits or if she inherits traits from both parents.
Oh, so
And
it's a recessive gene.
right now,
Okay.
my daughter, she didn't inherit my trait or her mother's trait, so she has neither one. But my
Okay.
son, he inherited both, so he was born with beta thalassemia, sickle cell anemia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's similar to like eye color.
Hmm.
So if two parents have brown eyes and they both carry the recessive gene for blue eyes, the kid has a 1 in 4 chance of having blue eyes because blue is a recessive gene. So it's a similar thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what it will do is now, if you have the trait, like I had beta thalassemia trait, it still will can cause ill health down the line. But
Hmm.
most people, they'll develop issues, but they won't attribute it back to having that trait. So they may have circulation issues and everything that comes along with that. Maybe liver
Hmm.
issues, maybe kidney, maybe adrenal issues, anxiety, things like that
Hmm.
um, that come along with the condition, but it's never very pronounced. It's very pronounced in the people that have both. And the main issue that people complain about with sickle cell is pain crises because the red blood cell will misshape into the form of a sickle. So instead of being a round, like oval, full shaped red blood cell, it
Hmm.
will change form and it causes pain because
Hmm.
it's not in the right shape to flow throughout the body, throughout the veins, the way that it should. And it also causes organ issues, lymphatic issues with the spleen, um, almost anything imaginable.
Hmm. Okay, interesting. And how does Western medicine do anything for sickle cell? What do they what's their methodology for that?
Well, for decades, it's basically just been pain medicine.
Pain medicine. Okay. Yeah.
So when people have to go, if it's bad enough for them to have to go to the hospital, they get very strong pain medication, and that was it for a long time. Recently, they've come out with drugs that stop they stop the red blood cells from misshaping.
Mm-hmm.
by inhibiting something in the genetics. But again, there's always side effects with that. Okay, so you have to then be careful about, okay, how is this affecting the liver? The
Mm-hmm.
pain may be gone, but there's also other aspects that have to be addressed. And then that brings up um, the aspect that most people deal with that take pharmaceutical drugs is they usually will have to take something else to counterbalance the
Mm-hmm.
side effects from the first.
Right.
So that's been pretty recent, past, maybe 10 years or so. But what most people that are using Western medicine are looking forward to now is the gene editing,
Mm-hmm.
like CRISPR. And there's a lot of gene editing laboratories that are coming online, and they're doing a lot of clinical trials now,
Mm-hmm.
to which blood is removed from the person's body. It's edited however
Mm-hmm.
they edit it. They use these certain machines, and well, I'm not going to describe it because I really don't fully understand it yet, but
Mm-hmm.
they edit the blood, they
Mm-hmm.
introduce it back into the person,
Mm-hmm.
and their hopes is that it cures the body from misshaping the red blood cells from
Right.
then on out.
Right.
And I've recently watched a online synopsis, a forum on that, and they had multiple uh, biolab companies that do gene editing, um, basically propositioning people with sickle cell to try the clinical trial. There's been a handful of people who have it's been successful with. But the thing that I couldn't sit well with was the amount of side effects that could possibly happen,
With
such
the gene
as,
editing. With the gene editing.
yes, with the gene editing. They
Yeah.
spent half of the presentation was talking about possible side effects, and
Yeah.
they're very extreme. Blood cancer is one of the side effects.
Yeah.
So it's really something that I see people would do if they're very desperate,
Yeah.
because you don't want to. Well, I wouldn't want to risk getting blood cancer, or women. One of the side effects would be possibly not being able to bear children.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that genetic editing is the most popular thing that people are looking forward to at this point in time in the sickle cell anemia community, but also in other communities of different diseases. Multiple sclerosis, I believe, is another one that they're targeting for gene editing. But again, at this point in time, the side effects to me kind of outweigh the benefits unless you're in a very desperate situation.
Yeah. Also, the body's a very complicated system,
Hmm.
and we like to pretend we understand all these things we don't actually understand. We don't actually understand like fully how all these genes interact with each other. We don't even fully understand how DNA works. You know what I mean? We don't. We
Precisely.
pretend that we do. Sometimes the scientists can make it sound like we do. Same thing with like modern, like atomic physics and things like that. We make it sound like we understand everything that's going on, but in reality, we don't. Like we don't actually understand what causes gravity. We
Exactly.
theorize it's like a particle called a graviton, and then that graviton is what's causing gravity. But we don't actually even understand gravity, like what's causing it in
Right.
modern science. So same thing with genes, right? So it's like, oh, we're gonna take your blood out, we're gonna edit a gene. It's super simple. Like, no, it's not. Like you don't even understand how those complex interactions are even taking place in the body and what it can affect. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's the beauty of mineral balancing,
Yeah.
and just in other modalities, but mineral balancing in particular, because we we didn't create ourselves, we didn't create our bodies, but we know what we need in it and what we need to be removed from it for the
Right.
body to do what the body was programmed and created to do: heal
Right.
itself and regenerate properly.
Yeah. Much
So
safer.
that's been for him, it's been a game changer, man. I mean, this is, on my website, I wrote an article about, I think I named it a new theory
Mm-hmm.
on the cause of sickle cell. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because they have the theory that's been out there for decades that sickle cell anemia is an adaptation to malaria. It makes a person more
Hmm.
immune to malaria. So
Is sickle cell more common in African Americans?
yeah, it's mainly African American
Oh,
issue,
okay.
and also
Interesting.
in some places in Africa itself.
Where
Um,
malaria is more common.
well, sickle cell anemia. Yeah, malaria is going to be common anywhere where there's not really good water
Isn't it more common in
water
like hot?
systems.
Isn't it more common in like hot, humid places though, like Africa or like East Asia?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, because
maybe
of the
it's where
mosquitoes and
mosquitoes
stuff like
are.
that. But
Yeah.
if you have, a lot of it has to do with the mechanisms and the systems that they use for their water.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have a hot climate, and if you have the right water systems in place, um, you'll be fine.
Interesting.
But that's been the running theory for a long time. But
Mm-hmm.
I propose a different theory, just based off of what we've seen on these hair analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that really, to me, doesn't have anything to do with malaria, especially in America, where there hasn't been an issue for malaria for a long time.
Right.
And probably since the 17, 1800s. Um,
Mhm.
what I've seen is an overabundance of what we call in the mineral balancing community bio unavailable minerals such as potassium and an
Mhm.
extreme amount of heavy metals in the cells.
Mhm.
Uh, as a matter of fact, I did my son's first hair analysis when he was 2 years old,
Mhm.
and he had one of the highest levels of potassium
Mhm.
ever seen. He was
Right.
at 292
Mhm.
milligrams. That's on a analytical research labs chart,
Mhm.
and I'm sure. I mean, trace elements they probably use the same
Right.
concept.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
but yeah, so the perfect number would be somewhere around 10. Okay, for potassium, his was 292,
Right.
absolutely astronomically off the charts. And my father, he used to work at a hospital. He's a did medical technology, and I told him about that. Or I think he read it in my article, and he was like, "Well, if that's impossible, because when we do potassium tests, if it was 292, he would be rushed to the emergency room immediately, because this is basically a life or death situation." But the thing about it is, they were doing blood tests in
Mhm.
the hospital to do blood. So we do the hair. Now, just think, if a person has a 292 level on a hair test that has not reached the blood yet.
Mhm.
Now, say 20, 30, 40 years down the road, which is usually when people with sickle cell have the most issues when they get in their 30s and 40s, they just deteriorate.
Mhm. Yeah.
That toxic, those toxic levels of potassium or toxic forms of potassium, um, when they begin to precipitate into the blood itself, then you know life is um, it's a life and death situation at that point.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, if you don't know, so there's actually different forms of minerals, right? So a very common elimination on a hair analysis is what we call toxic potassium, basically. And the key to knowing that it's toxic potassium is basically just a very low NAK ratio, right? Because we know that the body, it can't live. without. It can't live while having a certain, like if your NAK ratio is below a certain threshold, right? I would say like below 0.5, and you're probably looking at toxic potassium dump almost like 90. I would say like 99% of the time. Anything like below 0.5. Well, maybe 0.5 might be like 90%, but especially when you start going like 0.4, 0.3, then you're more like, for sure it's a toxic potassium dump.
Absolutely.
And we're all born, everyone is born with toxic potassium to an extent. We inherit it from our mothers. It's especially important for men to eliminate toxic potassium because it's a more feminine mineral and it's something we kind of inherit from our mothers. And in a more kind of esoteric meaning, when you eliminate toxic potassium, we kind of it helps maturity in men. So men that are still attached to their mothers, they tend to have too much toxic potassium. It's kind of another topic, but it's interesting, that he had that high of potassium. I imagine you noticed. So that brings me to another question. So in Western medicine, I don't know if this is true, but is there anything that you notice or Western medicine notices that? So you're talking about how like people kind of have these episodes of the pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did anything trigger that? Does anything triggers it in normal? Like if people like eat certain foods or they're not sleeping well and stuff, I imagine certain things can trigger those episodes.
Absolutely. All of that. Not eating the proper diet
Right.
will trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting the proper amount of sleep and rest,
Mm-hmm.
overexertion, physical overexertion.
Right.
People with sickle cell cannot overexert themselves, play sports, be on a sports team like other people. And they can do it, but
Right.
if it crosses a line,
Mm-hmm.
then the person can end up in the hospital the next day.
Right. That makes sense.
And even stressful situations, and even negative emotional state, bad
Yeah,
emotional.
similar to most diseases, right?
Hmm.
Right.
All
Okay.
those things.
At one point, did you know that your son had sickle cell? Did they do a genetic test at birth, or
They do.
they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe since 1986, every child is tested for a certain amount of certain diseases.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
so basically, everybody will know within the first whenever they do the first test, within the first
Okay.
few days or first few weeks, they'll
Okay.
know.
Okay. And did you notice anything different about your son at an early age? When did you did you notice when he was 2, for example? Was he more lethargic than typical children his age, or did you notice anything?
Yeah, yeah. Well, he had a lot of energy, but
Mm-hmm.
there's the crash. So you have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy and then crash.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. He used to have a lot of nightmares, okay,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of bad nightmares, on a regular basis. Okay. And when certain heavy metals came out of his system, such as nickel,
Mm-hmm.
which if you research nickel, that stuff, it causes nightmares. He had a lot in his cells. And he had a lot of all of the other toxic forms of minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Those things started to come out. His emotional state, his mental state, his dream state, all these things improved along with his physical development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine you noticed a pretty significant improvement with with that high of potassium as soon as he went on limb coming.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, he's been on that for forever. I mean, and
So
it's take
he's still on limb coming.
yes.
What is his sodium potassium ratio nowadays, and how old is he?
He's 11. His latest one. Actually, we're getting ready to do a hair analysis. He got one last August.
Mm-hmm.
His sodium potassium is 0.96.
Oh, so it's still below 1.
It's still, well, it's gone above 1, But then he'll have a whole nother toxic potassium dump. He's had multiple toxic potassium dumps. Like,
And does he get detox symptoms?
no,
Okay. Yeah, if I were you, it's not back in stock yet, but you should try the Valence, the NAK up. It's significantly more powerful.
really, okay,
We're seeing people that haven't had a 7 potassium ratio above 2.5 for like their whole lives, and then all of a sudden they can flip it up because it's so much more powerful.
okay. What's it called? NAK up.
NAK, yeah, it's from Valence. It's not in stock right now. They're remaking another batch, but I would try it if I were you.
Okay, so that is okay.
So
So
it's just
it's
limb
like a
coming.
it's like a limb commit, but more powerful. Okay.
Yeah. So the main guy that did it is Aaron. He's on Instagram. If you want to follow him, it's Redox Stasis.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did is he took limb comment and he gave it basically better forms of the minerals.
Uh-huh.
And it's also a powder and stuff. So I think it's a little bit easier to digest as well for people. It's like a more pure product. It's a little more expensive, but it's not too bad.
Okay.
But it's significantly more powerful.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like a mineral savant with the supplements. You know what I mean?
Okay, so is
So the
he?
Endomit supplements are good.
So that's his laboratory. So he has a supplement company himself.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. What him and a few other men have been doing is they're taking the Endomit line and improving them.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Endomit supplements, they're good, but they haven't been improved in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's newer, mineral science has evolved since Dr. Eck.
Yeah.
So it's the same like principles kind of apply to like, which minerals and the ratios of them like increase certain ratios in the body.
Mm-hmm.
But, you can use better forms of the minerals. So the biggest example is like for the B vitamins using activated forms. So like improving upon Megapan, for example.
Mm-hmm.
The NAK up is significantly more powerful. I can feel the difference when I take limb come versus the NAK up. It is significantly more powerful.
All right. Wow. Okay. I've never heard of this. It's my first time hearing it. Okay. Valence is the company.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I can send you a link or whatever. They
Okay.
don't have any NAK up right now. It's out of stock, but they're making more.
Where are they based out of?
The manufacturer I believe is New York,
Mm-hmm.
but Aaron and Matt, and then Lewis is also involved. Lewis from the channel.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get involved too at some point, but I need the state of California to give my freaking money back. That's another story, but
Well, you're in Cali, man.
oh man, yeah, I gotta get that.
It's another world.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about getting a second house in Florida just to move residency. Because a lot of those guys they're in Florida, basically. So Matt and Aaron are in Tampa.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're thinking we might try to make Tampa like a hub.
Man,
Like
that's
it'd be cool to be like do yearly meetups and stuff. Like we need like a yearly thing, like a conference. There should be a hair mineral analysis like conference where we can all like. There needs to be more of like a community thing. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, how long has this company been around?
Valence? Oh, it's kind of a slow motion thing. So it first started like Lewis and this other guy like 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
They noticed that the Megapan needed activated B vitamins, and so they just made their own little formula and we're selling it.
Okay.
And then it's kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, you guys got to keep pushing that, and then eventually get some investors and all that stuff, man.
Yeah, because it can be improved. I mean, Endomit's good, Arrow's good, but
But I mean, to grow it and make it really big gets. I don't know what needs to be done to get to put it on the market where people can invest and put money into it and stuff like that. But I don't know. To me, it's worth it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they're significantly more powerful. They are better forms of the supplements.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can see on the hair tests, know, and people review like people that have been on the program. They switch to the Valence ones, and they notice a difference. You know what I mean? They're like, wow, these are powerful. I can show you hundreds of testimonials. You know,
Wow. Right.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. It's yeah, in a lot of ways, us moving from working under Dr. Wilson was kind of a blessing because now we're able to kind of push it farther. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
especially if you have people who are versed in that, to the
Yeah,
point where they can create formulas. That's amazing.
yeah, it's cool that we finally have that we've reached the point where there's like a core group of practitioners that like understand it and like are willing to they want to push it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, the NA Cup, I imagine what you might notice a difference with your son. But yeah, that's interesting. So he's had a low sodium potassium ratio basically since birth. That's interesting. He still eliminates toxic
Absolutely.
potassium.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, so what sort of improvements have you seen with your son? Were they? I imagine you noticed. You know, most people notice a difference when they first start the limb coming.
Mm. Well, he rarely has episodes of pain,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is perfect because when there is a lot of I don't know if you guys look into the activity of the sun very much, but when you're in a solar maximum cycle, different issues that people have physically can be elevated. It can
Oh,
be
interesting.
increased. Different, from anything from cancers to every different type of disease imaginable under a solar cycle maximum
Mm-hmm.
point that we've been in. I guess between 2023 to 2026 will be the highest point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you want to be as healthy as possible. I mean, for a healthy person, you see more improvements or faster improvements with your health, with your mental health,
Mm-hmm.
emotional health, and physical health. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a low state of health, the opposite effect could happen. You can see a
Mm-hmm.
decrease. So even during this time, he has lots of energy. That's the most important thing. Lots of energy, and liver, spleen, kidneys, all of those things are functioning a lot better. I can just tell because when
Mm-hmm.
your kidneys are functioning better, you have a lower instances of anxiety, lower
Mm-hmm.
instances of fear, and nightmares and stuff like that. So all of those things have almost become non-existent. Them some of the things that you struggle with, even a few years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, he was still struggling with a lot of that stuff, and it's been pretty much eliminated. Now, then again, he'll have pain episodes here and there, maybe every few months or so, but they're mild, and it's he doesn't need to go to the hospital or anything like that. He just relax for a few days, and but that's so much of a blessing because when you look at people with sickle cell and what they go through when they describe their daily life, it's dismal. It's extremely dismal because it's not just about the pain; it's
Mm-hmm.
about what the organ damage, what that causes, and the mental health is low. Then
Yeah.
the spiritual health is going to be low, and the emotional health is going to be low because all those things work together as one.
Right. Right.
So that's we're just mineral balancing is so been a game changer, a life changer for him and for me as well because I carry the trait of beta thalassemia. So when I was in the military, we did blood tests, and I had multiple abnormalities on my on my blood work.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still allowed in because they weren't at the range where um, there's a
Right.
huge range. It's like it's way too big because if you're at the bottom of that range, you could still have a lot of physical problems, but they
Right.
still allow you to be in the military. So when I saw that I had multiple abnormalities, but the size of my red blood cells, I can't remember. I think I still have the paper, but it was abnormal. I didn't
Hmm.
know what that meant. So that's when I started looking into things to
Right.
improve my health. And, a few years later, I, learned about nutritional balancing. So been doing it ever since. And of course, I don't notice any negative health symptoms in myself at all. So
Hmm.
I think I'm doing pretty well.
Right. Right. Are people amazed by your son?
Yeah, they are. But
Right.
the thing is, we're trying to get it out to other people because as far as I know personally, he's the only person with sickle cell that does the program. It's on mineral
Right.
balancing at all
Right.
that I know of. And I mean, I've looked all over the internet and nobody is that I know. So just recently, I mean, it's only been 2, 3 months that I, started the website. It's prospering with
Hmm.
sickle cell anemia.net, pwsca.net, because I want to spread the word. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I bet people are. Does he still go to the doctor at all?
He hasn't been to the doctor in years. He hasn't need to.
Right.
He hasn't had a need to go. So,
Yeah.
um, and I don't really like, I've thought about getting blood work,
Uh-huh.
just to show the improvement, and I will at some point in time. But I just don't like the amount of blood that they take. It takes so much blood out,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the problem is they take the same amount of blood out for a small child that they do for an adult.
Right.
It doesn't
Hmm.
make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be a fascinating case study.
Yeah.
A lot of these children they'll make fascinating case studies. So Clark Engelbert is another one with some fascinating case studies because his business is really blown up, nutritional analytics on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and he has children with autism on the program and stuff, and he gets emails like these parents like they can't believe like the change in their children from the program, and so
Does he use valence as well?
with some of his clients,
Okay.
um, like a lot of practitioners just kind of play it by ear.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
So a lot of them are still using Endomet. Some of them are mixing it with valence.
yeah, yeah. It was practitioner by practitioner. Some people have more loyalty to Endomet, and Endomet supplements are still good; they still work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and so yeah, it's practitioner by practitioner, or it's even client by client.
Right. Okay.
Because some clients find out about Valence and then they'll message you be like, hey, should I switch? Like, what do you guys think about this other one company? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
That's good.
you have to adjust the dosages a little bit sometimes because they are more powerful.
Okay.
Especially like the NAK up and the slow ox, even the zinc's more powerful too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the paramin replacement isn't as important in my experience to change the dosage as much, especially the ones that are trying to shift that the NAK ratio or the oxidation rate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do have to adjust. But most people actually like they feel better on the other ones because they're a little bit cleaner too. There's less fillers,
Mm-hmm.
so they're actually like they're the pure powder inside of a cellulose capsule. They're not like
Mm-hmm.
pressed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're actually easier for children too because you can pop them open and you can instead of you don't have to grind them up with a mortar and pestle. You can pop them open and you can sprinkle half or whatever. It's already in powder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another
Okay.
kind of benefit. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of on a client by client thing. You know.
Okay. But yeah, so kind of back to going to what I was talking about with the new theory of the cause of sickle cell anemia. I wrote an article that basically just detail how it's toxic metals. It's
Hmm.
toxic metals and it's biounavailable forms of minerals in the extreme, and how each ratio affects certain areas of the body.
Hmm.
You have your thyroid ratio, you have your adrenal gland ratio, and all those things are connected to the hypothalamus, the
Hmm.
pituitary gland that create these hormones. You got your pancreas, you got your spleen. One of the issues that people have with sickle cell anemia is spleen health. And that's where your red blood cells are recycled, regenerated, and moved out into the bloodstream.
Hmm.
Your spleen is part of your lymphatic system. So
Hmm.
when you're starting to balance these minerals, it's a that's why it's so awesome, because it's a whole system healing process all
Hmm.
at one time.
Right.
You don't have to be a a rocket surgeon
Yeah.
to do it, because
Yeah.
it's whole system healing at the same time.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
That's what's so beautiful about it. You don't have to, if you're a client, you don't have to fully understand every aspect of it, because a lot
Right.
of these things, genetic editing and things like that, it's very difficult to fully understand, because number one, they don't really explain how it's done. I've
Hmm.
tried to look, but it's you really have to go to school, spend years and years and years spending all this money and time in school to understand how it's being done, and then you still have so many of these negative side effects that could take place.
Hmm.
But with mineral balancing, you're basically taking certain formulas, you're applying them, and every part of the body starts to heal as those cells gain strength and energy.
Hmm.
So it's amazing. It's been amazing for him and for my daughters. Well, I mean, I do everybody for everybody, even healthy people.
Yeah,
Healthy people should do it also, because you want to stay healthy for the entirety of your life. You don't
for
want to
sure.
be healthy in your 20s and 30s, and then your 40s and 50s you develop something, if you develop diabetes or whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
where you can nip it in the bud as a healthy person and just increase your effectiveness throughout the entirety of your life.
So with your son, the main metal that you've observed to be eliminated was the toxic potassium.
That's the highest, but it's every metal he's eliminated, from
Yeah.
mercury to
Right.
lead to nickel to aluminum, and basically toxic forms of every single mineral as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if.
Manganese.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering if we could narrow it down a little, and I wonder if there's possibly a mechanism that that toxic potassium is doing that's creating the sickle cell. That's
That's the
interesting.
main one. That's been the highest,
Yeah.
and that has a lot to do with the potassium, the heart, and just the general electrical potential of the cells to be able to even have power to do what they're supposed to do. Because you got the
Yeah.
sodium potassium pump. You without that
Right.
energy, without that electrical potential, it throws off everything. Of
Yeah.
course, that's why Dr. Eck named it the vitality ratios. That's the most important ratios of sodium potassium.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. I mean, obviously, there must be some sort of a genetic component as well as the heavy metals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? What do you think it is? 50-50?
Well,
If you had to guess.
I do
Because,
believe it's 50-50. Now,
yeah.
okay. Let me tie this into um I'm gonna tie it into a spiritual component, or esoteric component.
Right.
We, as people, we carry the genetics of our ancestors in our
Hmm.
DNA. All
Hmm.
right. Now, lifestyle can alter genetics, and
Hmm.
you may not see it in the person himself. You see it in his offspring or his grandchildren, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
So, full lifestyle, the way people live their lives, what people have done, um, the type of contamination that they've had
Hmm.
physically, those things can get passed on. So I believe that it is a form of these people, or these children, taking on I would say, the sins of the forefathers. Because
Hmm.
if you notice something that I've seen to be consistent with many children who have diseases like
Hmm.
leukemia and different things like that, they're always very optimistic. They're very spiritual children. They're very sweet, very nice. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that people have always wondered, "Man, why is it always the really, the sweet kids that have the diseases and stuff like that?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is the concept of a person being chosen to take the brunt of the negativity in a genetic line.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what
No, I
there's
agree with
na-
that.
there's names for it. I can't remember, like, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But people talk about people that are uh, they were born to break generational curses and stuff like that. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times they will have the most negativity when it comes to their health and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
or just circumstances in life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always the component of the ancestors and how they live their personal lives that has an effect on the DNA of the people that come after them.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I believe, is what causes alterations in the DNA.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some truth to that. Because I was gonna ask you, because I've noticed there's no all somewhat of an overlap as well with children that have a lot of nightmares. A lot of times they're spiritually gifted.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um,
And there's an attack there, and then when your body is not. I don't like to use vibrating on a certain frequency because that's
yeah.
so old to me. Everybody says that, but it's true. If you're not, if your body is vibrating low, then you're susceptible to lower vibrational entities that will cause problems in your
Right.
life. So
Mm-hmm.
improving that, strengthening that electromagnetic system or the aura or whatever it is, however people want to describe it, which does improve through mineral balancing and different things. Uh, that gives that protection.
Mm-hmm.
And removing those antennas is like
Mm-hmm.
metal is an
Mm-hmm.
antenna. It's a
Right.
conductor. So you got nickel and lead and things like that. Those can give correspondence to negative entities or negative vibrations that will cause issues in a person's mind.
Right. Right.
Uh,
That's another interesting thing is that so there's a racial component, right? So is sickle cell more common in African Americans than just Africans, or is it?
it is, and it depends on. There's some places in Africa where there is way higher, and then
Mhm.
there's other places where it's nothing much. But
Well,
um,
there's a large genetic difference between different people in Africa.
yeah, it's a really big place.
Right.
But
Yeah, people don't understand how big Africa is. Like the
yeah,
maps to do it. Like I think Africa is like the size of it's like the size of North America combined. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like Canada, America, and Mexico
yeah,
combined. You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as here in America, yeah, it's mainly black people that have it. Um, there are others, but it's probably 90%.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it kind of goes back to so you're talking about? Do you think there's a I don't know like a racial trauma going on
I believe so.
that's specific
Um,
to mostly black people?
yeah, absolutely. Now, there's theories. I mean, I told a practitioner that of color puncture. Have you ever heard of color puncture?
Color puncture? No.
Yeah.
What is that?
Okay. It's kind of similar to acupuncture, but
Hmm.
they use colors. It's a whole different science. It's really fascinating.
Okay.
But I was telling her about sickle cell and everything, and she was saying maybe it has some type of correlation to trauma or ancestral trauma or
Hmm.
different things. And I was like, well, I think that is true. What it boils down to, the original point where it started, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I like to do a lot of I like to do research on the past and really understanding the things that happened in the past, because
Mm-hmm.
what we've been taught to me is not extremely accurate. A lot of the things
Right.
that happened in the 1800s, for example,
Hmm.
um, we're just finding out that actually happened. and this within the past 5 years or so. You know, if you're familiar with things like the orphan trains, are you familiar with that?
No.
The orphan trains, okay. I mean, there's hundreds of hours of documentation on that, but that's not something we're taught about in school. How there was a period in time in between the mid 1800s all the way to the early 1900s where there's an overabundance of orphaned children, and there's never a concrete answer given as to why or to what happened to their parents. But different things like that. Okay, there's some type of trauma that happen ancestrally that cause alterations to the genetics, to the DNA, which gives rise to, when you couple that with the introduction of vaccinations in the mid 1900s, when you couple that with the reduction in the level of nutrients of the soil, and then you couple that with the introduction of chemicals such as superphosphate fertilizers and stuff like that. You put all those things together,
Right.
and then if you have an ancestry that was lived in a negative lifestyle, all those things together create the perfect storm for disease.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion, the interplay between how much of it is purely genetic and how much of it is just heavy metal toxicity. Like I said, I think it is definitely some combination of the two. But yeah, it's not really accepted how much, you can change your genetics.
Absolutely. That's what they don't want you to know.
Yeah, they don't want you.
You can absolutely, and you can set your even as a young person, it's so important for people who want to have children. You feel healthy. You're 20 years old. You're 25 years old. You feel healthy, but do
Right.
a hair analysis,
Right.
and you see how you see how much more of an improvement that you can make, and you can pass on better genetics and create a that can alter your whole family line.
Yeah, and you can fulfill your genetic potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you I bet your son is somewhat spiritually gifted.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, he definitely, there's things that you can't explain.
Right.
And when you see him in children, you try to create an opportunity for those gifts to be fulfilled, right? So when you see that, that should give a person more of a thought process in keeping them healthy physically. Because say for instance, man, if you get impressions, if a child gets impressions and they hear things, or they get impressions and they know things that they
Right.
just picked up in the spirit world, having a fully functional and healthy hypothalamus, for example, that will keep you from picking up the wrong or negative impressions in the spirit world that one would take for being true. It cannot be true.
Right.
A person's life can be altered by what they feel has been impressed upon them in their mind or in their heart,
Right.
and it can change their decisions. So if a person's in a negative or a lower state physically, then they can still have that gift. It's still there, but they can receive something that is an illusion, or the opposite of the way that they should actually go. Right?
Yeah. And I imagine that happens often with children with sickle cell, right? The parents tell them that something's wrong with them and that they'll be born with it for the rest of their lives, and there's probably a lot of negative energy with it.
Absolutely, and
Probably a lot of resentment.
it's
A lot of
very
parents probably resent their kids for having it.
Yes. The one thing I've noticed is it's very difficult for people to even try to embrace something like mineral balancing because they're so used to being sick, and it's
Yeah.
become something that they identify with, and there's something in them that really wants to stay that way.
Hmm.
So it's helping to break them free out of a mental stronghold of, hey, there's something that we can do to, you can improve,
Hmm.
you can get better, but
Hmm.
you have to be disciplined and eat the right diet. Make sure you're eating proper protein, eating proper vegetables,
Hmm.
and cleaning up um, the things that you drink, things that you eat, all that type of stuff. In addition to the supplements and things, a lot of times that is very difficult for people with illnesses to do, because if it's not just a pill that they have to take, or you go to the hospital and the doctors do everything for them, it gets to be overwhelming for
Right.
them. So I would say 90% of the battle for people with sickle cell and other diseases is getting them to do it
Yeah.
and stay with it.
Right. Yeah, and they've also been told their whole lives that it's going to be this way, and there's nothing they can do.
Right. And they begin to embody that.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I imagine, especially, if they have a lot of symptoms from the sickle cell, I would imagine that they get some relief fairly quickly from starting the program. Not like you're not going to get rid of it completely,
Oh,
obviously, the
yeah.
first day. But I imagine just like if you're like, for example, your NAK ratio is that low, you start taking Limcomin and you clean up your diet and everything. I imagine most people on sickle cell would notice a significant difference within the first
Oh,
couple
yeah.
weeks.
They'll notice it the first couple days.
Right.
It's yeah. I mean, it's 100% worth it. It doesn't take time to notice the change.
Right.
It's going to take time to really have multiple dumps of toxic metals and really start to clean up your genetics. That takes time, but initially symptom approval,
Hmm.
energy improving, those things happen very, very fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. That's one of the beauties, of the program too. Uh, so and if they notice that can oftentimes then get them over the hump. Like, oh, this is I'm onto something here. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, getting them to start is probably the hardest part. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I imagine almost universally they have a low NAK ratio. That would make sense because it's a less charged state.
Yeah, absolutely. That vitality, yes.
I imagine
It's
the low
just-
charge is somehow contributing to the abnormality in the shape of the cell.
Yeah, and there's some, of course, mineral balancing helps um, strengthen the enzymes, the entire enzyme system of the
Hmm.
entire body.
Hmm.
There's some type of enzyme deficiency, because it takes certain enzymes to carry the oxygen and the
Hmm.
hemoglobin throughout the body.
Right.
Hemoglobin it doesn't just work on its own. There's enzymes, there's coenzymes, things of that nature. So the improving the enzyme system is another benefit of mineral balancing. That and once it happens, it's pretty much permanent. That takes a while, but of course, initially, like we are saying, the initial symptoms definitely improve. But over a course of 6 months, a year, past that, the
Hmm.
the enzyme system of the entire body improves,
Hmm.
which improves the coenzyme system and all of the cofactors that go into the uh, the genetics and the making of these different molecules, such as hemoglobin.
Right. In your experience, are there any significant tweaks to the program for people with sickle cell? Like, do you notice people with sickle cell need certain supplements more, like maybe tweaks to the diet? Do they need more red meat, for instance, or anything like that?
Um, no, about the same amount of protein. What's very effective is yams. not
Interesting.
sweet, not sweet
Yeah.
potatoes.
Yams. Okay.
So,
Not to be confused. Yeah.
right, because we go to the cafeteria. We say I'm gonna get some yams, but those are sweet potatoes.
Yeah. Right. Right.
It's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So you have yams like the African yam.
Mm-hmm.
You have the wild yam. Those are basically two of the same. They're very similar. You have to find a store that sells those. Um, but there's a nutrient in it, um, thionate. I think it's called thionate,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it helps to keep the red blood cells from changing form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's a it's a good carbohydrate, good starch, complex carb.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's very, very good. There is a doctor. His name is Dr. Oji Agbe. He's from Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
and
I was gonna
for a
say that.
while,
I was gonna say that sounds Nigerian.
yeah,
Yeah.
for a while he had a supplement called Dioscovite,
Mm-hmm.
and it was from the extraction of that thionate mineral from the African yam. And
Mm-hmm.
he has a clinic in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was using that supplement along with the just a really good diet. Plenty of cooked vegetables and stuff like that. It's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And but he was using that extraction, and he was having a lot. He was having a lot of success with that. So I just for him, I cooked the yam. He cooked the yam. He eats it. I eat it all the time as well. Almost on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
It's jam packed with nutrients. I remember the thionate off the top of the head, but it's jam packed with lots of nutrients. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we really incorporate and is really good for sickle cell. And also the wild yam is good for the endocrine system, the hormonal system.
Mm-hmm.
So yams is one of the major things that I've incorporated as far as the diet goes.
I wonder, is there a thionate supplement?
There what that his was the only one that I knew about, and I don't know if they went out of business or what, but he had that for a while, for many years. I tried to get in touch with him again. I don't know if he passed away or not. I know he was kind of elderly at the time, but that's the only one I know of. I had to do some more research to see if there is one.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I wonder if we could find a thionate supplement or even like a yam extract supplement where it's just
They
like
do have the yam extract supplements,
that
and
might
those are
be
usually the wild yam.
a potential supplement to add to a regiment then, right?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yam
would.
extract. Okay. That's interesting. Fascinating.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's good. That's a good thing to know if because there's always tweaks to the program that we can incorporate for certain things. Some people need a little bit more red meat at certain times. Some you've probably seen this. Some people, it's not always a exact science nutritional balancing, right? Some people can't
Right,
handle
right.
some people can't handle carbs as well in the beginning, especially.
Hmm.
I have people that feel bad. So, they don't eat any grains. They just do just starchy vegetables and meat.
Hmm.
Some people they like the carbs more. I mean, the grains more. It just depends.
Yeah, I had them do a test because we were doing a color puncture session I was telling you about earlier, and they basically measure the electromagnetic frequencies that emanate from your fingers and your
Hmm.
toes, right?
Interesting.
And from there, I mean, it's a whole different science. It's crazy, but from there, they they generate um, on the computer what they believe your body should be eating and what it should stay away from as much.
Hmm.
So it was interesting. I mean, of course, it said he should be eating his vegetables and everything, but he had been eating a lot of eggs, like
Hmm.
scrambled eggs. Um, but it said he shouldn't eat eggs, right?
Right.
I noticed, he had his digestion wasn't really good with eggs. I had noticed that before. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, well, this test kind of it collaborates with that. So we took that out of his diet, and he's fine. He still eats his proteins and stuff like that, but just not eggs and dairy. The dairy was not good for him.
Yeah,
Now he
you
drinks
can't.
almond milk, yeah, but not
Yeah, yeah.
cow milk.
Your son can't handle the dairy as well.
No.
That might be a little bit of a racial thing too, right? I think can't have black people, they can't generally handle dairy quite as well.
Yeah, a lot of black people are lactose intolerant,
Right.
and it's especially because the pasteurization of the milk.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've drank the unpasteurized milk, and it was pretty good for me, but it still was a little too much, especially cow milk. If you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
find goat milk, unpasteurized goat milk,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that's very very hard to find.
yeah,
So, but it's at this point in time, it's really not necessary.
yeah, yeah. And you don't have to have dairy to thrive.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, the only two. I mean, as you've seen, the only two food groups you really need to thrive are animal protein and vegetables.
Hmm.
'Cause you can get your carbs from things like the yams.
Yeah.
You know,
That's mainly where he gets it from. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, does he eat grains?
He'll eat oatmeal.
Oatmeal. Okay. Yeah, oatmeal's fine.
Um, and I mean, he'll eat rice every now and then.
Does he do
Um,
any of the blue corn?
yeah, just blue corn chips. Hmm.
A good trick too is you can buy blue corn flour and
Hmm.
you can make something similar to like cream of wheat. You can make like a hot cereal
Ah,
with it.
okay,
Yeah, you just kind of mix it with water, kind of like you're making oatmeal.
okay,
And
okay.
then you can, just, like oatmeal, you can sweeten it or add butter or salt or whatever.
Hmm.
I used to
Okay.
do that in the mornings. They don't have it anymore, unfortunately, but there was a local co-op. They actually had blue corn flour in bulk. It was sweet.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
sometimes,
Yeah, I've never got blue corn flour before.
yeah, yeah. And so I was working like an early shift where I'd have to wake up like 5 in the morning.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes for breakfast, I would just make like a hot cereal. Just do a little water, then cook it for like 5-10 minutes till it's like soft, kind of like malto
Hmm.
meal or like cream of wheat kind of
Hmm.
consistency. And then you add a little bit of butter, a little bit of sea salt. Sometimes do a little bit like agave nectar, or like honey or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it
Okay.
makes a tasty cereal. Um, Probably healthier than oatmeal, but oatmeal's fine too. It's not like oatmeal's not bad
Hmm.
for us or anything.
Yeah, he does fine on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my kids, we eat oatmeal here a lot.
Hmm.
It's quick, it's easy, and it's pretty get some carbs in the morning.
Hmm.
For sure. Okay, cool. All right. Well, so your son's 11 now.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he doing any of the detox procedures? Like, does he use the sauna or anything?
He uses a sauna.
I imagine that helps a lot with the toxic potassium elimination.
Yeah.
It's like being able to sweat it out helps your kidneys and everything.
Yeah, I just built one based off of a YouTube video.
Yeah.
I've had it for years, and yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, you can build one cheap. What I also have people do sometimes is another good way to go is you can buy they're actually marijuana grow tents on Amazon,
Hmm.
and they're like the
Oh,
reflective.
understood.
Yeah, they're like the reflective tents. They're for growing pot, but
Yeah.
you can get them on Amazon for like $150.
Hmm.
And then all you do is you string some lights up in there, and then like you can make it a little warmer too. You can put a heater in it, or like put a blanket over the top, add some insulation.
Hmm.
But those work pretty well too. And it's faster than or it's easier for some people than trying to build it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's really good for him and for me too for the kidneys.
yeah, for sure.
You,
Yeah,
when you can feel, sometimes you maybe detox a little bit. You can kind of feel your kidneys a little bit. You can feel it. Get up
yeah.
under. I gotta get up under there, and it just kind of regulates it.
Do you think there
So
is he on Renamide? Do you think the Renamide helps also?
yeah, He does. I think he takes that like once a day.
The Renamide, okay. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine the Renamide is also.
Renamide does help. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, Renamide is a kidney glandular that we give.
Mm-hmm.
So a glandular is basically just like freeze-dried kidney. And so when you take that, it has all the nutrients that are present in kidneys. So it helps your body have those nutrients to basically, help its kidneys function.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, he takes uh, the glandular for the ox bile glandular and the GB3
Mm-hmm.
for digestion as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But they're all. Does he do the TMG?
He does that as well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting case study. So you probably have all his hair tests saved as well.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just got to get it out to the world, man. Show everyone, hey, you know what? We can do something about this. We have the power. We have the technology, Dante. We have the
Yes.
technology.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the plan. That's what we're doing. And yeah, we're in the beginning stages. So
Yeah,
moving
yeah,
this message forward.
yeah. So, where can people find you? I'll put down below when we put this on YouTube. I'll have the links to your major, like your website and everything. So,
Okay.
what's your
So
main social media?
I have Facebook. I have Instagram.
Okay.
It's Dante Berry.
Instagram,
Um,
Dante Berry. Okay.
yes, Facebook Dante Berry. I think
I'll
that's all
include,
I get.
I'll include a
Yeah.
link to your Instagram and your website.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, my website's pwsca.net, prospering with sickle cell anemia.net. So, but yeah, I'll
Okay.
send
Cool.
you the link for that and everything so you can post it on there.
And you're accepting clients at this time?
Yes, I am. Hmm.
Okay. Cool. Well, if you have sickle cell anemia and or you have your kids with it or something, contact Dante, and he can get you started. It's always nice to work with someone that has gone through specifically what you've gone through.
Right.
Um, that's why people tend to gravitate towards certain practitioners. They
Hmm.
maybe see their content or they vibe with the person and like they see like the things that they've gone through. Usually they've gone through something similar
Yeah.
to the person. You know, um, so having someone that's helped people and has a child with sickle cell anemia is a massive resource for people.
Yeah.
Because what it takes. You know, and you know how to even modify the system, right? How many people know about the yams? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But because you've lived it, you've had to learn those. You've had to learn those things,
Hmm.
which is very powerful for people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll have to we'll do an update video at some point,
Hmm.
and if I know anyone with sickle cell anemia, I'll send them to you. Or maybe I'll also start recommending people do that yam extract because that's a good trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe,
Absolutely.
we can add that. It's another tool in our toolbox, right? We can add
Yeah,
that to.
especially for people, anyone, and particularly women. They, a lot of times they have hormonal issues. It's very
Mhm.
good for that,
Oh, and
for
yeah,
hormone regulation, especially the wild yam in particular.
yeah, the wild yam extract. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
All right, Dante, it was nice chatting with you. I enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll put your links down below. And if anyone has any questions, they can comment down below. And if you want to get in contact with Dante, we will have his contact information on the video. But it's nice chatting with you.
Nice chatting with you. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, bye bye.
All right, bye.